Welcome to Praying Through the Bible, Genesis 21, 8 through 21, a prayer of a teenage boy. Life repeats itself, and Genesis is real life. Life repeats itself, and uncontrollably, some repetitions are filled with pain, retribution, and goodbyes, because Genesis is real life. Once before, Hagar left, running away, chapter 16. Once again, she leaves, pushed out and away, chapter 21. Once before, Hagar mistreated her mistress, chapter 16. Once again, Hagar's son mistreats their mistress' son. How many times do our children repeat our mistakes? Once before, Sarah laughs at having a child, chapter 18. Once again, someone laughs at her son, and pain is repeated, chapter 21. As if divinely intended, Ishmael's mocking in Genesis 21, verse 9, is the same word used of Abraham and Sarah laughing. Was Ishmael laughing or mocking God's promise, or laughing at Ishmael's name, which means laughter? Life itself, often hauntingly, repeats itself. Was God reminding Sarah when she laughed at God's promise? Life hurts when it repeats itself. Sarah begs, demands, Abraham, drive out this slave with her son. That's how she said it, verse 21, verse 10. Earlier, her language is different. Hagar, or Sarah, took Hagar, her Egyptian slave, and gave her to her husband as a wife for him. From slave to wife to slave. Ever notice the value we place on people is often determined by what we want from them? What Sarah wants now from Sarah is Sarah gone. So she emphasizes her as property, not as a person. The two are cast out of the promised land, using the same language for the original two being cast out of Eden, chapter 3:24. Paternally, Abraham is distraught, but whether comfortably or uncomfortably, God intervenes, promising that Ishmael would become a great nation and be blessed. The younger son replaces the older son, which is a repeating theme in Genesis. Abraham says goodbye to his son Ishmael, chapter 21, verse 14. Little does Abraham know that he will be asked again to say goodbye to a second son, only to gain him back, chapter 22. Driven away, the Egyptian slave of Sarah and his son wander, much like Isaac's descendants will 400 years later out of Egyptian slavery. Cast off out of bread and out of water in this wilderness, they will not last long. Chapter 21, verse 14. Despairingly, mother leaves her son under a bush to die, under a bush because she cannot bear to watch him die. And she cries. 21 verses 15 through 16. A story about wanderers in a bush and God rescuing slaves. Let's get back to the story. Life repeats itself, and Hagar finds herself being found by God again. Chapter 21, verse 16. Apparently, the child is crying too, because chapter 21, verse 17 says, God heard the voice of the boy, which is the very meaning of Ishmael, God hears. Is Ishmael crying out to his covenant God, chapter 17, 23? Does a teenager cry out for his mother who couldn't bear the pain? Mom, where are you? Were the sounds of his voice just uncontrollable despair? Or is this simply but deeply a prayer not of words, but of tears? through an angel, this prayer of a teenager is answered. Once again, God promises great things for Ishmael. We see that will be fulfilled. Once again, Hagar sees. Once again, God refreshes her and Ishmael with the water of life. There's a strange phenomenon within this chapter, though. While we see all of the repeating themes, never do we see Ishmael's name mentioned even once, let alone repeated. Here's our prayer challenge. As is the repeating pattern of life, we all have to say goodbye and relive our own mistakes. Let's make sure our children know God and don't repeat our sins so that they too can inherit his blessings. This makes our goodbyes easier while preparing all of us to say hello again in eternity. Start praying. That's Praying Through the Bible, number 11, Genesis 21, 8 through 21, a prayer of a teenager. If this has been a blessing to you, please share. Thank you.